and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing my first quarter wrap-up and I'm going to try my hand once again at stats. A forewarning, I'm really not very good at statistics or really even doing basic math. I've botched this plenty of times before, but I always have fun doing it and I really like the colorful charts. So first I'm going to go over my stats, then I will go into the books I felt were mismatched for me, the worst books I've read in this quarter, and then finally the best books or books that I feel like are new favorites, and everything that falls in between. So let's start with the basics. This is from the beginning of January to the end of March, and I read a total of 11 books. For some people that's a lot, for some people it's a little. For me, it felt fine. I did feel like I was reading less, but I also had so much going on that it didn't really bother me, and I felt like I was getting a lot of reading done despite that. In January, I had 3 books and 1 DNF. In February, I read another 3 books, and in March, I read 4 books. I am counting the DNF in these statistics because I read like the first 100 or so pages of it. I need my time back in some way, and this is how I'm getting a bit of that back. The books that I have been reading recently as of April, I'm going to be putting in my Draconathon wrap-up, so any dragon books that I've been talking about lately are not going to be in this video because I'm going to do a video entirely dedicated to all of the dragon books I recently read in April. Separate video coming out later. For the amount of pages read, 3,815 pages. That's about an average of 47 pages a day, which seems fine to me. That's reasonable for how much I've been working and doing and also writing my own book. The average page count per book was 347 pages, and my average rating for these books was a 3.95. I did mark the DNF as a 0. I feel fine having not finished this, but I also want to mark it as a 0 as far as success goes. So as far as my average rating, there was 1 0 because that was a negative amount of success. For genre breakdowns, I have very pretty charts. Hold on. There's a couple of these where the subgenres definitely cross over, but the basic idea of my genre stats is fantasy being 36.4% of my reading, historical fantasy being 27.3% of my reading, suspense being 9.1, and horror being 27.3. There are horror fantasy books in this list as well as historical fantasy, as I pointed out, which one is more mythology and the other one is like Regency. I put the mythological book and the Regency book in the historical fantasy and not in the fantasy category. As you can see, I read a lot of things that are speculative and not real. I love the not real. Moving past that, I read 2 debuts, which ended up being 18.2% of my total reading. 1 new to me author that wasn't a new author, which made up for 9.1%, and then read before, these are authors I'm familiar with and have read books from before, took up a whopping 72.7%, which was 8 books. And then finally, breaking it down by age group, YA was 18.2% as well as middle grade, both being 2 books respectively, and then adult books was 7, which was 63.6% of my reading, which makes sense. I do love middle grade and I do love YA, but I have been gravitating more towards adult for quite some time now. That seems like about right. A couple different times Goodreads put these in different categories, and I kind of just had to go with what I felt that they were, because Goodreads would have middle grade and young adult and new adult, and new adult and adult. Goodreads was not helpful to me at all in this, and so I just kind of did my best. So that's that for the stats breakdown. Let's go ahead and move into the actual books themselves, and I can spill the tea first on the mismatch books. The books that did not match with me. They definitely match with other people. They were not for me. In this category, there were only 2, and the best of these 2 was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This book came in at 482 pages, and I gave it a 2.5 star. I almost bumped it up to a 3, but it was initially a 2, so 2.5 felt correct. And I read this actually for the Literally Dead book club with Books and Lala. She has a live show that I will go ahead and link down below because I have lots of thoughts on it. This book just was not for me, but after having the conversation with everyone, I really did see a lot more of its merits, and I realized this might just be a me thing on several different accounts. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is based off of real events that happened in America in the 1970s. I mean, It was happening before that, but the book takes place in the 1970s, and it's following girls who have gotten pregnant and are sent away to these homes in order to have the child secretly and then give it away for adoption before being sent back to society. In this story, our main character does get pregnant and is sent to one of these schools where she ends up making friendships and finding a book on witchcraft, which she and her friends then use with the goal of empowering themselves. I thought that this was going to go one way, and it very much so went another. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but I really loved the premise of this. I just felt like the premise was so much better than the actual execution and like where the plot actually went. I felt like there was a lot of things that were just kind of thrown in, and when I looked into it, because I was more than mildly offended by the witchcraft inside of it, I found him actually stating in an interview that the witchcraft was added last minute, and it was done with little to no knowledge of what he was actually working with, because he was working with Wicca and paganism. It was a bastardization that I just did not find appealing. I was not the right match. However, lots of people had fun during the live show, and the crowd was definitely pleased with the book, whereas some of us hosts were less than pleased. So we had quite a large array, and this is just, for me, I think, a mismatch. The worst mismatch experience I had this quarter was definitely Fear the Flames. This is extra tea because I'm actually the host of a dragon-based readathon and book club called Draconathon. We have the book club over on Fable where it's dragons and Draconathon. We picked this book. You know, Soleil, my co-host, did finish it. I did not. I DNF'd it. And as soon as she was telling me some of the things that were in it, I hard DNF'd it. I felt like it was such a mess. It felt like I was picking up spaghetti with my hands, okay? Like it was sticky and gooey and all over the place, and I had no idea what was going on. The premise of this is a princess turned queen is going against her father's neighboring kingdom in order to get her dragons returned to her. There's supposed to be a dragon heist. I've heard mild things about the dragon heist, people being less than pleased, but overall a very high rating amongst my friends and peers. So I feel like we were reading different books, and there are technically different books. Looking into the origins of this book, it was originally an indie book that was then picked up by a publisher, and the page count was more than cut in half. And I don't know who was in charge of making those decisions, but you could tell. You could tell that this book was 500 pages shorter than it used to be, because it literally just felt like world building was just taken out. Nothing made sense. I felt like I was just walking through air trying to figure out what my surroundings were, what was going on with her. The exposition was very weird, the dialogue was stilted, and I had just had enough. I set it down with the thought of picking it up later because I am a host. I am supposed to read the books that I am telling everyone to read. And I didn't. I didn't pick it back up again, and as soon as Soleil's rating came out and she was telling me about it, I asked her to spoil it for me, and it sounded like it was terrible. She gave it 1 star. I'll leave her review down below. If you want to have someone's opinion on the full book, I read about 120 or so pages, and I was good. Moving on to books I loved and enjoyed. These aren't going to be my 4s to like 4.5s. This is kind of like the reason I'm on BookTube, because I just have all of these books that I want to read, and then I read them and I enjoy them and I want to talk about them. In order of like what kind of stuck with me when I'm thinking back of which ones I liked the most. First, we have A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. This is a middle grade book. I went into it thinking it was young adult and realized pretty quickly it was middle grade. The main character is 13 or 14. These are very much so childlike moments. Yes, there is horror aspects in it. This is by T. Kingfisher, who is an absolute cozy fantasy horror queen. It felt very middle grade, and it was adorable, and dealt with really large topics in a really edible way. There is a sourdough starter in this as a pet named Bob. There's so many cute and whimsical moments, but there's also a dead body on the floor. She's mixing it up. The plot definitely veers, but the basic idea of A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking is our main character has a little bit of baking magic and works at her aunt's bakery. But in her city, many sorcerers of little magics are starting to disappear. When she opens her bakery to find a dead body in it, she is immediately alarmed and she gets swept up into trying to find out what's going on. And we get a larger plot about like society, classism, and a lot of other really big topics that I just felt were dealt with really well. And it was really interesting and just adorable all the way through. There was a little bit of necromancy, and it just, I don't know, it hit. hit. It was great. And I ended up giving it 4 stars. Then I also read by T. Kingfisher, The Hollow Places. This was an adult novel that follows a woman who just got out of a divorce and is going to go live with her uncle who works at, I don't know what you would call it, like a knick-knack emporium, something that has like a lot of strange and unusual things. Think like the giant yarn ball on the side of the road in America. One of those sorts of places. And when she accidentally finds a portal door along with her friend who's a barista that opens to a very creepy place, they go and explore inside of it and absolute horror ensues. I really loved the friendship dynamic between the 2 main characters in this, and there was a lot of really funny moments. The only thing that brought it down a little bit for me was the fact that the main character just could not seem to conceptualize what was happening to her, which I mean fair. At one point there's a taxidermy beaver that's chasing her through the house at like 2 a.m. But we had the preemptive knowledge that something like that would happen. She knew that that was what was going down. A couple of times MC made some dumb moves, but otherwise I had a lot of fun. After that is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. This one took me by surprise. I started it during Try a Chapter Tag and I was absolutely smitten by it, and I wasn't expecting that, and I don't know why. I didn't think it was really my genre. It's a southern gothic horror with a haunted house, and I just had so much fun, especially with the main character. The main character in this, she's feisty, she's gritty, she bites people. You just get this like feralness from her, and I just really enjoyed her. This is a young adult novel, but I think it's one that could definitely be enjoyed by adults who normally read more adult books. I just think that it did such a phenomenal job of beautiful prose, a really strong main character, and wonderful relationships throughout. I was fascinated. I wanted to know what would happen next, and I thought the ending was really cool too. There was nothing wrong with this book. The only thing that didn't make it a 5 was I just didn't get that like sparkly feeling inside. Like 5s are a vibe. I think on paper it's a 5, but sparkles wise, it was like a 4 to 4.5. I could have been holding this book up the entire time. I own this book. It's really pretty. Here's the inside art. Yeah, I could have been holding this up the entire time. I'm so used to not having books that when I have the privilege of holding them, I forget I can hold them. Next up, I have Caraway of the Sea. This is by Madeline Burgett and is a cozy, gritty pirate fantasy, and I really do think it is both gritty and cozy. That it has a lot of found family and friendships, and it has such strong pirate vibes. I don't know, they were almost like cartoon pirates, not cartoonish, not caricatures. If you were watching a cartoon with pirates in it, and then it would just have these like very dark scenes in it, I was always surprised because otherwise I was in a safe, comfortable space watching pirates. The vibe was cozy pirates, and pirates are always a little dirty and a little gritty, so it made sense. These are legitimate pirates. They brawl, they sing, they throw each other overboard. You really don't know what you're going to get except for that you're going to be getting pirates. And it was so much fun. Caraway as a main character was very flawed, but it was someone you could definitely follow along in her journey and you were rooting for her. While I didn't always agree with her, I definitely enjoyed my time with her, and we also got quite a sprinkle of romance as well, which was unexpected but really enjoyable. As far as the plot goes, without giving too much away, you have Caraway, who is the sister of a pirate lord or pirate captain, and she is incredibly loyal to her brother. And she might even have a potential fiance on board until he's overboard. And that really upsets Caraway, which is valid. And she ends up having her loyalty questioned alongside getting to know another rival pirate lord, and I'll just kind of leave it there. I read it on ebook, but I'd love to have the physical copy because it's gorgeous, so that might be something I splurge on soon. Moving into new favorites. These are the ones that got the sparkles, and it's just hit for me. It's the opposite of a mismatch. It's a perfect match. And I have 3 books that were a perfect match for me. And I can hold it up. Look at me. The first one I'm going to talk about is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. And this was such a fascinating book. I was riveted the entire time. Full focus, all hands on deck into this book. This follows our main character, the river Ganga, who is a goddess of the river. It shows how she was lured down from the heavens, and it goes through an entire history that I am so interested in learning more about. This is not softball mythology. It really delves deep into ancient India mythology, and it was so gorgeous. It did not turn me off at all that I didn't sometimes understand some of the winks and nods that were being mentioned. Instead, it just made me want to learn more. I was incredibly tantalized, and it really made me want to pick up more Indian mythology books to just learn more about all of these characters. I already have a few that I'm eyeing now because I loved this book so much. I really loved Ganga's perspective as well as her son, and it moves you throughout history through centuries. The beginning does have content warnings that I would highly recommend checking in on. It's a very thorough explanation explanation from the author, but one of them that I can definitely highlight besides like war and death is the killing of children. It is more specific to a mythology thing that's happening because they believe in reincarnation, and these gods are put into children, and that's seen by the gods as a sadness because they can't be immortal, so then they are turned from mortal to immortal, and they are babies. So if that is something that you need to stay away from, I would do so, but she has a lot more explanation in her foreword, and it was really interesting to read. I'm glad I read it going in because it gave me an enrichment of the experience. Instead of me just being shocked, it was something that I got to take in slowly and really just get to experience this culture and these legends as they are, and not judge Ganga as a modern woman, but the ancient Indian goddess that she is. I can't wait to read more from her. I'm going to pick up KKE. I am absolutely in love. I ended up giving this a 4.5 simply because I felt like I wanted more, is what I ended up giving it. It's a 4.5, but it's a sparkly 5. You know, like it's a favorite. It's not a 5-star, but it is a favorite. I hope that makes sense. I don't know how else to explain this. I love it. I'm so happy I read it. I'm going to eventually reread it again after I have a lot more knowledge and understanding. I didn't have any knowledge or understanding going into this, and I am in love. And it really just gave me a glimpse of what I could be in for, and I cannot wait to pick up more. Then we have Famous Last Words. Gillian McAllister is such a wild card for me. Like, I'm reading all of these fantasy books, and Gillian McAllister comes in with these contemporary thrillers that kind of center around a relationship and a really good hook, and she just grabs me like full force. These should be books where I just read, consume, enjoy, and go, but they're favorites for me. Both Wrong Place, Wrong Time, and now this one, which is Famous Last Words, just had me hooked. I could not stop reading this book. I loved it. She did it again. She got me so invested in these characters. She goes so deep, and there's so many little nuances that make them feel real. I end up sobbing at the end, partially because these are thriller suspense novels and not everything's happy-go-lucky. I don't want these characters hurt, but also there's a mourning that happens to me after reading these books because I have to understand that these characters aren't real. I can't Google them and see how they're doing now, which is such a like a wild thing. I don't really come across this in fantasy. I'll miss characters, but I won't mourn them. But because I feel so immersed and it feels so real while I'm reading it, I just about lose my mind. So Famous Last Words is about a woman who is getting ready in the morning and her husband's not there, but she needs to go ahead and take her daughter to the daycare. After she drops her daughter off at the daycare, she still can't get a hold of her husband, and when she sees on the news that the area he works in actually is having a hostage situation, she immediately believes that he is in danger, only to find out through the police that come to her door that he is not the hostage but the one holding hostages, and she has to try and talk him through it. I can't even say that this was fast-paced. I was flipping through pages so quickly, but I feel like it goes and it takes its time and builds its characters, and really it does so many character studies that lead you to a conclusion. By the time we get to that conclusion, you're just racing for the end. You have to know what happens. I was thrown off once again by the plot twist. She's gotten me twice now, and I really want to go and read her backlist because I'm afraid of the quality going down, because of course as you become a more skilled writer, your skill level will go up. So I am afraid to go back, but I will definitely read everything she writes moving forward. She's 2 books in and already feeling like a favorite to me, and I can't wait to pick up her next book. Whenever it comes out, I'll be ready and I'll be waiting. Then finally we have A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. You can catch me talking about in depth all of my T. Kingfisher books that I've read so far in a T. Kingfisher specific vlog. All of the books I read in that vlog and every T. Kingfisher book I've ever read is in that video. And I do an entire breakdown, ranking. I've decided which ones I'm going to read next. We have a plan, we got a plot. This is A Sorceress Comes to Call. It is a Regency historical fantasy with horror elements, and I had so much fun reading this. I knew from page 1 that this was going to be 5 stars, and I kept on waiting for the ball to drop for me to be disappointed, and I never was. It was a hit the entire time. Page by page by page, I just kept enjoying myself more and more and more. I was screaming. There are some horrific moments in this. Our main character is so sweet and so kind, and I just wanted what was best for her, but I also loved her friendship she was building and the connection she was having. It was so good. The plot to A Sorceress Comes to Call is that our main character Cordelia is growing up in a house that feels incredibly stifling. She's not allowed to close her doors, she's not allowed to argue or state her opinion, and it's very hard for her to make friends and Cordelia's mother is a sorceress, and the way that she controls Cordelia is absolutely horrifying. And it touches on such a specific type of dynamic between parent and child that can go so horribly toxic, especially when you're dealing with gaslighting and manipulation. And this really did, at its core, show the type of power that manipulative parents and narcissists have over their children. I was tearing up at so many different points in this book because how Taking Fisher just put this into words was incredible. I'd never seen it put so succinctly. I so admire her ability to do that because this is not a large book and it did just so much. The second part of the plot, now that I've had that side tangent, is that Cordelia's mother has decided to try and marry a rich man, and Cordelia is very worried for this new family. So is the rich man's sister, and Cordelia and her try and work together to stop her mother from ruining all of their lives. It was intense. It was insane. I really, really loved it. It just had all of the sparkles and was my favorite book that I read this quarter. That is 9 of the 11 books I've talked about. I'm just going to touch briefly on the fact that during February, I was having a hard time. And I went ahead and I reread 2 of my all-time favorite books, which I then just gave 5 stars, which did up my rating and my page count, but I did read these and I did rate them. The first being the Raven Cycle series by Maggie Stiefvater, and the other being Nevermore: The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. The next in this series is coming out very soon. I think it's like something like next week. I have waited so patiently. I've been so patient. If you have been on my channel for a while, you've seen me announce Silverborn, and you've seen me be incredibly disappointed by the lack of Silverborn for years. I'm finally getting Silverborn. I'm ready, but I need to reread these. So I just finished this one. I need to read Wondersmith and Hollowpox next so that I'm prepared to read what is hopefully going to be my favorite book of the second quarter. The Raven Cycle series is also phenomenal. It's finished, it's done, and it just felt really good to read. I'm not going into these because I've talked about them on my channel before. They're absolute favorites for me, but I've read them before and I've talked about them before, and they just kind of felt like side reads because they've moved into a different space. I'm no longer recommending them to people because I just love them, and that's kind of the end. I don't want to hear that you dislike them. Keep it to yourself or hide it from me like some of my friends have. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave a chart emoji for all of the statistics I tried my best to do. Let me know which was your favorite book you read this quarter, but whether you do or not, I hope you're enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are, and until next time, bye!